Welcome to the Her Story Circle podcast, the podcast that brings you the extraordinary tales of everyday women who are changing the world. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I'd like to acknowledge traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. I also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. Every week, we dive into the lives, challenges, and triumphs of women from all four corners of the globe. We're here to inspire, enlighten, and connect, sharing stories that uplift and empower. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and join us as we explore the incredible journeys of women shaping our future. This is Her Story, where every woman's voice matters. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Her Story Circle. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another intriguing young woman. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, and share your story with us today.
Hello, I'm Suzannah Weiss. I am a feminist writer and sexologist based in Los Angeles. I do many different things. I'm the author of 2 books, Subjectified, which came out last year, which is about my search for sexual empowerment and my vision for sexual empowerment for women, and Eve's Blessing, which comes out this year, which is on the normalization of women's pain and how we can lead more pleasurable lives instead. I'm also a sexologist, a birth doula, a sexual assault counselor, and a certified sex educator. I teach courses on topics such as female orgasm, consent, sex and neurodiversity, pleasure in childbirth, and many other topics. That is a pretty good introduction. Does that suffice?
So where were you born? Give us your backstory, I said. We want to find out more about you, the woman. Are you a mother? Are you a wife? How many people in your family?
I have 2 cats in my family, Mauricio and Clay. So my backstory is I was born in New York. I am 34 years old, and I guess I got into the field I'm in because growing up, I felt uncomfortable in my body. I had a lot of body image insecurities. I wasn't taught much about sex. I wasn't really comfortable with my sexuality. I had an eating disorder for a few years, and that's what my first book talks about. It's about how sexuality became my way out of that. And so it was in college that I first took my first sexuality workshop, and I learned just that it was okay not to have shame around that part of yourself, and also that as a woman, I could build a sex life and a life that was based on my desires rather than being an object of men's desires. So that's how I came up with the idea. Subjectified, it's a play on the word objectified, and that helped me overcome my eating disorder and my body image issues to see that women, we didn't have to be defined by our looks, by our appearance, but we could be the ones looking and the ones pursuing and desiring. And my journey with sexuality has been a long one. I've also had an experience with chronic illness that led to my second book, Eve's Blessing. So until I was about 25 years old, or almost 26, I had never had an orgasm with a partner. And I learned through my work as a sex and relationship writer all the different techniques, and I did different explorations, did a hypnosis session, a course, all different things. And I really found out how to ask for what you want from a partner and figure out what it is that you need and build sexual connections that are satisfying for all people involved, and to also be assertive in expressing your desires. And that is also something I write about in my book, Eve's Blessing, how we normalize not just women's pain, but women's pleasurelessness, women not having great sex, not having orgasms. It's considered normal. And so that's what I'm looking to change. And another experience that's played a lot into my work is my experience with chronic illness, particularly chronic Lyme disease. That is something also in my second book. And I go deep into how women's symptoms get normalized and really how the medical system fails us, and how we are not trained to actually look for the root cause of women's health issues, which is often lifestyle issues, which is often societal issues like being overworked, being overstressed, not being able to sleep properly, the pressure that society puts on us to always be go, go, go. So, so anyway, that is something that I'm really passionate about, is just women's health and women's sexuality and women's pleasure. And
That is awesome. Wow. Thank you so much. It's really interesting to see a young woman who's managed to reframe some of the taboos that normally affect women on a day by day basis. But what do you mean by an orgasmic life, and why is it important?
that's a concept I develop in my second book, The Orgasmic Life. It's this idea that you can increase pleasure in your body in any circumstance, and that the goal of women's lives is not just to have orgasms during sex, but have a life. One person I interviewed, Josephina Bashout, she's a sex and relationship coach, and I
Mm.
spoke to her for this book, and she says her whole life feels like one giant orgasm because it's just a series of sensual delights. Like when she sips coffee in the morning, she's just like, I'm really enjoying this coffee. Or when she goes for a walk, she's like, wow, the sun, the wind feels so good on me. There's a process of slowing down and feeling your body that can create this lifestyle where you center pleasure, you prioritize pleasure, you do things that are pleasurable to you, and you sink into the moment to really feel them. And that is the orgasmic life.
That is so beautiful. Now, can you describe your personal healing journey through chronic illness and sexual shame? Take us through what you were experiencing.
Whew. I about in around 2018, it came down with a number of symptoms, bladder pain, neurological issues, insomnia, fatigue, a lot of related symptoms that were eventually diagnosed. Well, first I was diagnosed with interstitial cystitis, which is a very vague diagnosis given to women with chronic bladder pain. And often it's actually there's classic interstitial cystitis, which is caused by ulcers in the bladder, but often they just put that label on you without knowing what is even happening. And that's the case with a lot of women's health issues like vulvodynia. There's just these labels that describe symptoms without really getting to the root cause. So anyway, I was diagnosed with that, put on a bunch of medications, and nothing really helped because it didn't look at the root cause, which is I had multiple bladder infections and chronic Lyme disease, which started to show up as other symptoms. And I really had to fight for about a year. It took me about a year to get diagnosed, 17 doctors before I could get diagnosed. And it opened my eyes. Not, and it's not just women, just women's concerns are brushed off more often because our pain is normalized, but the whole healthcare system, it's just focused on covering up your symptoms. And so I really did a deep like soul journey. I ended up working with psychedelics and plant medicine, which is really actually what helped me more than anything. I did a bunch of alternative holistic treatments, but that took me on a whole other journey of waking up to who I was. And that's a whole other story, maybe for another book. But it just, yeah, just taught me to care about myself, to really prioritize how I feel on a daily basis. I think a lot of women are going about their lives with some kind of symptom that they can't get to the bottom of, and we're taught it's not important, and it is.
Yeah, a lot of times our symptoms are dismissed because we have a lot of issues and things that go on in our bodies that are not general. So every woman is different. We're all going to experience different menstrual cycles, menstrual pain, whatever it is. There's no one cookie cutter experience for women. So, how did your upbringing shape your view on sex, sexuality, and shame?
That's an interesting question because my upbringing, I wouldn't say it was particularly sex positive or sex negative. I do know I was a bit unusual in that my mom never talked to me about anything. Like other girls in school would start talking about periods because their mom told them something, and I didn't know what it was. Like I had to get educated by my friends every step of the way. And that
Mm,
just, I feel bad saying that, but that made me not want to be that mom. That made me want to be the someone who does educate people, and someone who's okay talking about those things. I think
mm,
that
mm,
was a big factor. And also my dad didn't talk about much either with me, but he did do something cool with when I was in college. He just called me and say, with sex, just I'm not going to say wait till you're married or even wait a month, just find a good person and use protection. And I was like, that is a good talk to have with your kid. And like it helped me have this shame-free approach to sex where like, yes, you should make good decisions, but that's not about the amount of time you wait or anything like that as much as just pick good people and listen to your body. So that is my philosophy.
So, what does feminist theology play in your work? What role does it play in your work?
Theology, yeah, I use that term to describe my book, Eve's Blessing, which is coming out. So I did a deep dive in that book into this story in the Bible of Adam and Eve, and this idea that Eve was cursed by God, and she was cursed with "Thou shalt give birth in sorrow," which has multiple translations, but it's usually taken to mean either that God gave women pain in childbirth or menstruation or painful first time sex or all of the above. And
Mm,
it's actually misinterpreted. So I really talked to a lot of people who study the Bible and was told actually it more is talking about emotional pain than physical pain. So I mean, you would think that from the word sorrow, it actually could be translated more to fear or anxiety, and give birth is really more like have children. So it's more
yes.
about actually the oppression. I take it to mean more about the oppression that women face. I see it as this telling of this story of how we came up to be in a misogynistic society where women, they're forced into this medical system in birth that doesn't always work for them. It's often more about profit or more about saving time. And also women, our reproduction is under control. We're shamed for the way in which we have children, if we don't have children, if we have children outside of marriage, if we're too quote unquote slutty. So I really took a deep dive into that and found there are theologians, there are interpretations of the Bible that do not even believe women are cursed with pain. I
Mm,
think personally that the curse was something to overcome, and that we are overcoming that now as we're waking up to the fact that women can actually have positive experiences. I talked to women who had orgasmic births and ecstatic births, which sounds crazy to a lot of people, but they say it was by trusting themselves and creating their own birth, often at home or in a natural setting or at a birth center where they had natural comfort techniques, and letting go of fear and letting go of control and surrendering to their body. So there are all these movements. Menstruation also actually is not supposed to be painful. That's something that usually comes from an imbalance of hormones or nutrition or something like that, but we're undereducated about that. So we have this whole idea that God cursed women, which I don't think is true. I think people are leading more pleasurable lives as we're waking up to the fact that we don't have to live in pain.
that is beautiful. Now, You've written openly about period positivity. Why does this still matter in 2025? Every woman has a cycle, every woman has a period, but it's still an issue to be discussed.
Yeah, it's something that, so I have seen a lot of destigmatization of menstruation, that women can talk about it, which is great. It's still something in a lot of parts of the world that women have to keep under wraps, and there are still girls who miss school because they're on their periods or they don't have access to supplies.
Yes.
And I think the biggest thing I think is the normalization of period pain and PMS, which even if we're talking about it, if we're talking about it negatively, it's not that women can't share their experiences, but I think there's such a lack of research and a lack of care for women who have period pain or PMS or other reproductive illnesses like endometriosis or PCOS. And what research is starting to show is there's a lot of factors in our modern society that we overlook that contribute to women's hormonal imbalances. A lot of chemicals that are used in food and in household items, and a lot of food that has ingredients that cause inflammation, or food that is lacking in nutrition. As I said, lifestyle, just poor sleep, high stress, all of these things are affecting women. And so I think we also need to talk about that, and also about the fact that periods can, for many people, have positive things. Like for me, I know my sexual sensitivity increases, I feel more aroused, and I'm just like so. Um, I actually kind of look forward to it, and we don't talk about that, but that's what more people could have if we knew more about women's health and educated people more.
Yeah, I think that education piece is definitely missing for a lot of women. Now, how has your book been received and what feedback has moved you the most? I know you've got the two books, so let's talk about both.
Yeah, well, the second one hasn't come out yet, so I'll talk about the first one, Subjectified. That one, I got a lot of good feedback on that. I think probably, I think I was surprised to see how many women related to it. Hold on.
Right.
Yeah, how many women related to this experience of being taught that they're an object. And even if it's not something that happens to them, even if they can't name an event, like, they were sexually assaulted or something, there's just this
Mhm.
overriding culture that has women hyper conscious of their looks, has women feel like they don't have, like, their free will is almost taken away. Like, even in dating, we're taught that men are the pursuers and that we like can't go after what we want. And so I was just glad to hear how many women are tired of that, and relate to the idea that I put forth of being a subject instead of an object, being someone who is desiring, someone who is pursuing, someone who is going after what they want rather than just receiving what comes to them.
Right. That's fantastic. So, what can people expect from the second book?
They can expect something that's more communal. I actually interviewed a lot of different women and share their stories in it. It's a little less intellectual and actually more spiritual. It ends on a note of bringing in some concepts from Christianity and Judaism and reframing them in a way that's actually positive. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, they can expect to learn about many women's journeys, from pain to pleasure, including my own. I think compared to the first, it requires less brain power to read and is more just flowy and fun to read.
That's fantastic. So, what is one myth about women's bodies that you're most passionate about dispelling?
One myth I devote 3 chapters to in my next book is the myth of the elusive female orgasm. So we see online in magazines everywhere the female orgasm is so elusive. It's so hard to get women off compared to men. And I think that stems mostly from a lack of education about what women need, and about a lot of mental things that come up, a lot of trauma, shame, maybe anxiety in the bedroom. And I think that's why I like to help women have the sex lives that they want. There's a lot of false statistics out there, but when women receive the proper clitoral stimulation or whatever stimulation they need, they can orgasm as quickly and easily and consistently as men. So I think it's a shame that women are not having as many orgasms as men are. And yeah, that's a myth. That actually, the myth in general of women being less sexual, being less orgasmic, that's a pretty new idea. It actually started a few centuries ago, around the late 1700s. It used to be believed that women were these sensual temptresses like Eve, who are just so horny and so like just so prone to carnal lust. And then there was this Puritanism move where women had to be pure and they had to hold up their households in the Victorian era and around the time of colonialism in the US. And actually, it's not so much based on biology as it is on religion and politics.
Okay. Now, how do you define sacred pleasure, and how can more women access it?
Sacred sexuality is an umbrella term for a number of things. Some people use that term to describe what's typically considered tantra. It's the idea that you can use your body to connect with your spirituality, and spirituality could just mean feeling more whole and complete within yourself, feeling more connected to the universe. So there's actually exercises you can do to connect with sexuality in a spiritual way. Some that I recommend are breast massage, where you massage your breasts and you just focus on feeling into the sensation, and it can actually help to open up your heart to be able to just tune into those feelings. And what else was it that I was going to say? Some people use yoni eggs. I know those are controversial. I haven't had any issue with them. They're these like crystal eggs you can put in your vagina, and you need a string so they can be pulled out. And you do different exercises where you squeeze and release around them. And some people say, for me, I have found it kind of uplifts your mood, and it kind of just gives you, there are different meditations you can do with it to just increase sensation and increase mindfulness. And just generally, the practice is to breathe into the sensation and really feel it strongly, mindfully. And that's, yeah, one example of what sacred sexuality is.
Okay, that's fascinating. So, what are some daily practices or rituals that have helped you connect with your body?
One ritual I can recommend is to just put on music and dance several times a day. Like, just put on, if you're feeling frustrated or angry or bored at your computer, you can just put on one song and dance, and just do it with the intention that you're going to let out all the excess energy in your body. And shake. You can shake your wrists, your hands, your feet, your legs. Just to connect with your body and your emotions, because without realizing it, our emotions can build up throughout the day, and then we're like, why do we feel so crappy? Why do we feel so tired? So that's a simple practice you can do even as you're getting ready in the morning.
It's so practical and simple too. So, how do you navigate criticism or controversy in your advocacy work?
Criticism, to be truthful, I don't read like any comments on my articles or really any comments on social media. I have my settings set so I don't see replies to tweets from people who don't follow me. I basically tune out most criticism. I did have trouble with, I got some negative reviews on my first book on Goodreads, which I find out a lot of people do. And you just have to realize, I actually called one of my friends upset about that. And she was like, remember, this is a country where the majority of people voted for Trump. Like, do not use the majority of people as your standard for who, like, for whether you're good or not. And I really like that. So I try to think of that.
That was a very good piece of advice. It helped you reframe where you are, right? Oh, wow. Now, what advice would you give to someone who's still living in sexual shame? A lot of women do this.
I would look at what are you missing out on by having that shame? What would your ideal sex life look like? And what is the shame holding you back from? And allow yourself to get angry and fired up about the fact that you're not having that now. Because I think when we listen to our anger as women, we become very powerful. We're taught to repress our anger, or like we're going to scare people with it. But I think if you actually look at, okay, I have this shame, and you know what, I'm pissed off that I'm not doing these things that I would rather do, that can actually be a motivation. And if
Yeah,
you're stuck, talk to people about it. Just share anything with your friends. It's so healing to talk about sex with your friends, or of course hire a coach or a sex therapist if you really want to get to the bottom of it and work through it.
yeah, you don't have to do it alone. There's so much support that's out there now. That is good. And what is the intersection of your personal spiritual beliefs with your feminist work?
It's a really interesting question. The intersection is, so I consider myself Jewish, Christian, and Messianic Jewish, which is Jews who believe in Jesus. I believe in everything basically, but I think like these theologies, I think we can use. There are so many interpretations of the Bible, of the Torah, of all kinds of sacred texts. And I think actually what Jesus would want is for us to know that we don't have to judge others, scold others, live lives where we're criticizing ourselves, judging ourselves, and living in shame. And
Mhm.
yeah, so I think that that alone is feminist, to believe that God wants happy, healthy lives for us, women
Yeah,
included, and does not want us to feel bad about ourselves, and actually made our bodies in his image and wants us to celebrate our bodies, also wants us to be kind to our bodies. But um yeah, there's many directions you could take those texts in that actually help to dispel shame and help to see like Jesus already died for your sins. You don't have to have any guilt.
yeah. Yeah, I think shame is such a man made construct, and a lot of people need to realize that. So, what is your hope for your platform over the next few years?
I hope to share it with the love of my life. Um, I'm planning something big. I can't talk about it quite yet, but there's a man I really love we're about to write something together, and it's going to be something about true love. And I'm also planning to write something about sex and psychedelics, and how psychedelics have opened me up to new levels of sexuality and orgasmic bliss and sensuality. And I would like to make a movie about my life, and possibly a play, and keep teaching people how to have better orgasms.
Oh, I love it. My last two questions are a bit of a thought experiment. In the first one, I'm going to teleport you back into the past to meet that young woman who was trying to figure out her own sexuality, get rid of the shame. If you could go back and give her three nuggets of wisdom based on what life has taught you up until this point, what would those three nuggets of wisdom be?
I would say don't believe your parents, just or authorities in general, just because they say something and they're adults doesn't make it true. If something doesn't sit well with you, go your own way. I would say you're allowed to feel beautiful. You are allowed to feel good about your body. You are allowed to enjoy the attention that others place on your body, and you're also allowed to call people out when they put attention on your body that you don't like, or say things about it that you don't like. And that, there is justice in this world. And if you're having a hard time, if other people aren't being fair to you, if you're being put down, just know that the time will come when you're going to come into your own and you're going to feel so much better about yourself. And there are other people who are going to support you in that. And you just do not have to take what other people say at face value. Know inside and out that you're beautiful. Feel how sweet, how kind, how just full of love and light that you are, and radiate that outward, and you will feel more beautiful, and you'll also think less about your looks.
Absolutely beautiful. Last question is futuristic, and I'm going to teleport you into the future to go and meet the 90-year-old you. And she's sitting in her rocking chair. Maybe she's on a dance floor with science and technology. I figure you'll be dancing somewhere. If you could teleport to meet this wise woman who has led you up until this point, what will you say to her when you finally meet her?
I would say, please tell me everything. Please tell me that all my dreams come true and it all works out. And just please, and please, if you exist already, keep reminding me of that.
I like to ask women that question because a lot of women don't realize that the wise woman is already in us. She's that quiet voice that has put you on the track that you're on now. The quiet voice that tells you to advocate for women's rights, for women's sexual pleasure. The quiet voice that's making you empower so many women to really find themselves. But as women, we look outside of ourselves for knowledge, for wisdom, but you were born with everything you need to do this work, and that's why you're doing it. So thank you for your work.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And thank you to everybody who tuned in today. The Her Story Circle is not just a podcast. We are a social impact movement that brings you the voices and stories of women from all over the world. We share our stories to uplift you, to inspire you, to educate you, but most importantly, to empower you with knowledge, to take you from where you are now to where you're trying to go. So now you've got somebody who can support you on your sexual journey. Reach out. You don't have to do it alone. I will be sharing Suzannah's details with this podcast. Life is magical when you step into your skin and you start living 100%. I'll be back again tomorrow, everybody, with yet another amazing guest. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And Suzannah, thanks again for this interview.
Thank you.
Bye for now, everybody. Suzannah, don't go away. Thank you for tuning into the Her Story Circle podcast. I hope today's story has inspired you to believe in the power of our stories and the difference you can make in the world when you use your voice. I'm Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a rich tapestry of diverse perspectives. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these stories with more listeners. Follow us on social media by looking for the Her Story Circle podcast for more updates. And join us tomorrow for another episode filled with courage, resilience, and empowerment. Remember, your story matters, and together we're building a stronger, more inclusive world. Until next time, keep making her story.